Public relations, a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between clubs, their members, and the public. The PR for Success is designed to help you do that with impact and towards excellence. One masterclass a month, each focused on a different aspect of public relations and geared towards immediate implementation of skills, with a WhatsApp group that provides a supportive space. Some of the things that you will learn are the power of the Toastmasters brand and effective use of the PR toolkit. What about designing ads that wow, and creating and implementing a social media plan with effective use of the media? The PR for Success program, designed for VPPRs but open to all members and designed to help you take your PR skills to the next level. Are you ready? Public. Welcome to Masterclass 10. Masterclass 10 sits on the shoulders of 9 jam-packed sessions. We started with the fundamentals, being brand right. We explored implementing this brand right fonts and colors using Canva. But what do we do with this brand right, beautiful Canva posters, flyers, ads? We use them online. And so we learned about digital marketing, benefits over features. How often, when, where? That was what we did with our PR plan. We moved on into our third session and we explored what kind of communication goes out to our folks to bring people into Toastmasters. And this is where we learned about the value of collecting and telling our Toastmaster stories. Where else could our stories go and our flyers and our ads? The media. So we followed that up with a session on media building a presence in the media. We shared practical examples of a club who gets a lot of media presence. We learned about putting together a media pack and about engaging and compiling engaging press releases. We then went back to further expand on our digital marketing session, and we looked in depth at social media, specifically in depth at social media marketing. Our social media efforts, our personal communications, with our guests and visitors, our emails, they're only as effective as our messaging. And so we held 2 sessions on effective messaging on social media, on WhatsApp, how we communicate, what we say, exploring what Toastmasters brings to each of us and learning to effectively put that message together. However, good stories, effective messaging, that goes hand in hand with having strong clubs to invite people to in the first place. And so we put together and invited a guest, a facilitator, Lance Miller, to hold a special session on building and promoting your club. We even held a competition to see how our VPPRs are implementing the lessons learned from the masterclasses. And we had a beautiful response and a good range of winners, and we learned that we still have a lot to learn. We followed up our building and promoting clubs with bringing it back home to some of our local superstars, and we explored the why, the what, and the how of public relations, and extending from the personal to practice. That's 9 masterclasses. That is a huge library on which to build. And Masterclass 10 sits on this vast array of knowledge where we will talk about how our PR plan worked everything we learned, how we implemented that, had to go into the PR plan before we implemented. So who did that? And how did it work? How did we track it? Netsai, who was at Masterclass 2, is back today, and I'll introduce her later, but she'll be expanding on this very strongly. And we are at that point in our Toastmasters here where some of us will be handing over the VPPR role to somebody else, to our successors. Some of us here will be taking over that VPPR role, and we'd like to be quick on the button and take off running. So what makes a good handover process? A smooth transition at a very practical level. These and others are some of the questions that we'll be talking about today. Speaking about questions, please feel free to ask your questions. This is our penultimate session, so we're running out of time for all the questions that you may have. Tonight is one of those where we welcome all your questions in the chat box. Specifically, I personally would like to ask you, and I've discussed this with Netsai, is to think about what you would like to have known when you took over your VPPR role that we can talk about today. And if you're going to be taking over, what is it that you would like to know specifically so that your transition is smoother? Please do put that into the chat box, and we will do our best to answer as far as we can. So with that, with 9 masterclasses under our belt, I would like to introduce to you our facilitator for Masterclass 10, which is who is Netsai Bingpinge. Netsai, thank you for switching your video on. Netsai has extensive experience in public relations in the corporate world and in the hospitality industry in particular. She is currently the VPE of Benoni Toastmasters, and she has a team with her. However, today she's being facilitated by none other than DTM Maud Nale, our program champion for PR for Success, and the District 74 Public Relations Manager. It gives me great pleasure to hand over to Netsai and to Maud. And that's it from me. I will look out for your questions, and I will be with you when they are done. Thank you. Maud, Netsai, over to you.
Thank you so much to you, Zakia, for that very warm introduction. Good evening once again, fellow Toastmasters. It's always so lovely to be here on the third Saturday of the month. As Zakia said, we're nearing the end of our program, but not only that, we're nearing the end of this Toastmasters year. And this is a perfect time for us to reflect on our journey getting to this point. Whether you're a vice president of public relations or any club officer role, any district officer role that you occupy, what worked for you in this year? What didn't work? What did you wish you would have known earlier? What do you wish you would have implemented earlier so that you can set up your successor for success? They say that success is in the succession. You, fellow Toastmaster, are not successful as a leader until the person who comes after you is. And so it's very important that you have a plan of action on how you're going to prepare your successor for success. That is why it's called succession planning. It requires some work on our part to be able to do that. I'm very excited tonight to be bringing this masterclass to you, not on my own, but with the lovely Netsai Bingpinge from Benoni Club. She was here in Masterclass 2, speaking all about planning for success, why it's important to have a PR plan and track its performance. And so tonight we're going to unpack the PR plan that we all implemented, hopefully, at the beginning of the start of the year, reflecting on what worked and using that same plan to plan for our successor. Netsai, lovely to have you with us this evening. How have you been since we last had Masterclass 2? Over to you.
It's been great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maud. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our, to our 10th Masterclass. It's going to be exciting. We will learn a lot. I only have a few housekeeping issues. Kindly ensure that you stay muted. So unless you're asked to speak or unless you're speaking, and try to ensure that your videos are off, again, unless you're speaking, to enable the Zoom master to spotlight easily the person who is speaking. And also ensure that you've charged your glasses with a suitable liquid so that you're as comfortable as possible as we take you through this training session. And lastly, if you will notice, to your left are your ladies' toilets, and to your right are your gentlemen's toilets. Feel free to use them should you feel it's necessary. Enjoy this training. Let's get started. We're going to start with a recap of what we learned before when we spoke about the marketing plan, that clubs need to have a public relations plan. We're going to start with that, and just a quick recap in case some of you did not attend that masterclass. We'll just do a quick recap on that. I'm going to share my screen quickly. All right. All right. So in the previous masterclass, we spoke about the public relations plan, and we defined it as the strategy that defines how you're going to communicate your value proposition or your service offering to your target market. This means how you're going to communicate the message about Toastmasters to the world and to the communities around you. So this plan is very action oriented. You will notice I underlined the word there, how, because it shows practically how you are going to do things and disseminate information and tell the world about Toastmasters and gain more members to join Toastmasters. So we said in our previous masterclass, while at work, our public relations plan has all this fancy stuff, this SWOT analysis, this all sorts of analysis at the beginning. That, while that is good, but for the purposes of Toastmasters, we wanted to focus on the key things that are expected to be in a public relations plan. So these are the key things that we said they should be in the plan. We said your plan should show what you want to achieve, and your objectives must be SMART, meaning they should be specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic, and also time-bound. That should come out clearly in a public relations plan. And it should also show who you want to reach, who is your target market, who are the people you are speaking to. You're not speaking to everyone. So who are you speaking to? That should also come out. That is a key element. And what should also come out is, how are you going to do this? What tools are you going to use to communicate that message about Toastmasters to the world and to your communities? So here we mentioned the various platforms that you can use: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. There are so many platforms that you can use to communicate your message about Toastmasters to the communities out there. And we also mentioned that it is also important for you to mention who is responsible for what activity. We want to know who we can ask if we need to know something about something that has been planned on the marketing plan. So you need to indicate who is doing the runaround, who is responsible for what, and we indicated that the VPPR is the in most situations is the person responsible for most of the activities that you are going to do at the club, as long as they are public relations related, right? And we mentioned that this plan must be time bound. You all know that when things are not timed, they go on and on forever. They never get to fruition. So this plan must have time frames to say, we're going to do this activity by such and such a time, so that we are clear when the activity is going to happen, right? And we also mentioned that there's need for you to track that plan. After you've put it into action, you've developed it, you need to track it. And we mentioned that the best place to track this plan is through your club executive meetings, for example. And in our club, for example, we meet every month as an executive committee, and we discuss and we make sure that the VPPR presents the way forward what is still outstanding, what are the future plans, and all that. So that's the best place to present this and check performance to see whether you are making progress or not. So that is what we discussed previously. And we also touched on researching about your audience, and we said that this will help you understand your target market's needs. Efforts aimed at understanding your target market will never be in vain, because that's when you find out which tools they use, what they like, what they care about the most, and all that. But if you don't know which platforms they use, you will never know how to communicate appropriately to them. We even mentioned that those who are in university clubs, they should know what kind of platforms they normally use. Maybe university students are mostly on TikTok, and maybe they are mostly on Instagram. Then you use those platforms to communicate your message to the appropriate target market, all right? And we mentioned that you have two types of audience. If you are in a community club, like myself, I belong to a community club, and most of us in here also belong to community clubs. I belong to Benoni. So you have internal audience and external audience. So you need to have activities tailor-made to retain your existing members. And you also have activities tailor-made to gain new members. So this is what we spoke about last time. Of course, last time we spoke about them in detail, and then we developed an action plan and all that, and the importance of doing so. But for today, I'm now assuming, like Maud says, that we developed the plan. I'm assuming everyone has the plan, because most of us, even on Facebook, we say, I'm going to start that plan, I'm going to develop it tomorrow. We were all geared up. So I don't know, I'm not sure if everyone went on to develop that plan, but I'll assume everyone has this plan. So had a plan, or at least we are going to review the effectiveness and impact of the public relations plan, or we are going to review all those efforts that you did, even if you didn't have a plan. We want to find out the impact of all the public relations efforts that you did throughout the year. And then we're going to learn the handover process and prepare your successor for success, all right? And then the next thing is we want to prepare an action plan for outstanding issues. Normally, when there's an outstanding issue, there's a time frame. So again, we need an action plan to say who will do what and by when, to ensure that all the outstanding issues are completed. And then the last thing we'll discuss, like Maud said, if you knew then what you now know, what advice would you give to your successor? This will be the last part of this session. All right. So now I'm going to stop sharing for a bit, because I want to hear from some of you, and what were the success stories throughout the year? What went well? What were the challenges that you experienced? What did not go the way you expected? I want to hear from you. So we may not be able to find out from everyone. So most of you will have to type your name, the club you belong to, and then you tell us briefly, I had a plan, but I had a few issues. However, I also had some successes. And then you just type briefly what were your success stories and the challenges you had in the chat box. But for now, let me call upon Tawanda Mubumbi. I see Tawanda Mubumbi there. Yes, he has opened up his video. Tawanda, I would want you to give me this feedback in your whatever you're going to do, your feedback to me. Did you have a plan? I want that to come out. What are the success stories? What did not perform very well? And were there any challenges that you experienced, or maybe it was rosy for you? If it was rosy, feel free to say so. And then what could you have done differently? If there were certain areas that you didn't really do very well, what do you think you could have done differently? Over to you, Tawanda. Tawanda is the VPPR for Kempton Club, and he came second he's a district champion. He came second in the district international speech contest. Tawanda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Netsai, and a pleasant evening to all of you who are attending this masterclass. As Netsai mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Public Relations for Kempton Park Toastmasters Club. And it has been an enjoyable experience. I'd like to share our PR plan, just a summary of it. Let me do that now. So I shared the plan with our executive committee in August 2020. And here are the highlights of the plan. So our key communication tool was going to be Facebook. We have a Facebook group. And I also wanted to communicate to the Kempton Park community through the Kempton Parkers Facebook group. We also wanted to follow up on inquiries through the club's website, and we wanted to activate a LinkedIn page and also have articles on the Kempton Express on a regular basis. And lastly, to create a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and an Instagram account. So what were the successes? I was speaking to our Vice President of Membership, June Adolf, earlier today, and she mentioned that what gained us the most members was actually member referrals. So by members, I mean members of Kempton Park Toastmasters Club or other members. I recall receiving emails from our public relations manager, Nale, with 3 names of people staying in Kempton Park that we could reach out to. We also got some contacts through Andrew Tsuro. So I think what helped was our Facebook posts. Our Facebook posts allowed other Toastmasters from other clubs to know who they can refer to in the Kempton Park area for people staying in Kempton Park to attend our meetings. So I would like to thank the greater Toastmasters community for referring people to our club. Secondly, our club website. A lot of people came through from our website, and I also feel that our club executive committee worked together very well through sharing of the Facebook posts and asking friends and family to attend our meetings. So that is with regards to our external audience. With regards to our internal audience, we had group mentoring sessions once every month, and that helped our new members to get to know how to use pathways and start on their level 1 and just get started on their journey in Toastmasters. And also, I tried to send out WhatsApp posts in our WhatsApp group for the club with just useful information that Toastmasters International was sharing. For example, they would have magazine articles that I thought were relevant on things like emotional intelligence or the world champion of public speaking, just their speech. I would share that on our WhatsApp group just to keep our internal audience engaged. Challenges, we had challenges. I had an active club member who wanted to do the posters. So that went well initially, but we had challenges in terms of getting the posters ready on time. I know, Netsai, you mentioned we need to send them out at least 2 weeks before our club meeting, and that didn't always happen. So that was a challenge. And also messaging of Facebook posts sometimes was a challenge because we identified what our club was about. We wanted to have fun meetings where people can learn about communicating and get to speak better. But if you're going to send out a post every week and mention the same thing of fun-filled meeting, for me, it just felt draining. And also just the plan of having a Twitter account and Instagram account, we only managed to open the accounts. We didn't manage to communicate through those platforms. I realized very early that maybe we should just focus on two platforms, that was Facebook and LinkedIn, and grow from those. What could be done differently? I feel if there was maybe almost like a social contract with people who volunteer to take up PR roles at the club, so that when they commit to do something, they deliver. And if they aren't able to, they can communicate that ahead of time, so that the sharing of posters can happen on a regular basis. And then also mentorship of existing members. I think, like I said, our greatest advantage was member referrals. So if our internal audience is not happy, if they're not receiving the right mentorship, then we'll have challenges as Vice President of Public Relations. Lastly, I think just tracking of the plan could have been much better, and that would have been much better if our executive committee met on a more regular basis. That's it from me, Netsai. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Wow, thank you so much, Tawanda. That was great feedback. I really like your feedback. I saw the successes that you shared. That is good. You were sharing the post on Facebook, and people from all over, even other people who are not members, like Maud and other people, referring people because they saw the post in the first place. So you were trying your best to post, and then you get people engaged and people start referring and all that. I like that. And also I like the fact that you acknowledge your weak areas. You know, not many people like acknowledging their weak areas where they didn't do so well. People normally want to paint that picture that everything was rosy and glossy, but it's never like that in real life. No matter how good you are, there will be a certain one or two things that you will miss out. Not that you'll be a weak person, but there will just be a few areas that you didn't really put more effort. Yeah, I really like, thank you so much for that. And I like the fact that you admitted that maybe the tracking could have been better, and maybe those accounts that you opened could have been used more, or maybe you should just have focused on the like Facebook, that was giving you most value. I like all that. The good thing is you know the learning points and you are going to pass that on to the next person. Thank you very much, Tawanda, for that. Maud, do you want to say something or not yet?
Hi, Netsai. Definitely not at this point. What I'm loving is the conversation that's happening in the chat box. I'm going to ask all of us here tonight to please let us know whether you had that plan or not, so that we can use tonight to help you chart a way forward as you prepare for your successor. I know it might seem embarrassing, especially if you didn't have that plan, and that's okay, because that's part of the learnings that you're going to use and tell your successor that, hey, I didn't have a plan, and I would definitely recommend that you do so. So please do share with us so that we're able to assist you with responses and weave them into tonight's masterclass, so that we're able to set you up for success as you plan to set your successor up for success. Back to you, Netsai.
All right, thank you so much, Maud. So she's busy right there taking down some of the issues, the key issues that are coming out in the chat box. All right, next I want to call upon Maralise Mulder. She's the VPPR for Honeydew Club. Maralise, can you open up your video so that the Zoom master can spotlight you? There she is. Welcome. The same questions again. Just tell us briefly your success stories, what went well, and also the fact that did you have a plan? And if you had one, what went on, what were the challenges, and what would you tell your successor, things that you could have done differently? Over to you, Maralise.
Thank you. Good evening, Netsai, and fellow Toastmaster members, or as I would say at Honeydew Toastmasters, hello Toasties. Yes, there was a PR plan when I took over the VPPR role, and I was so fortunate enough that once I took over the VPPR role, the PR Masterclass for Success series started. So I was just absolutely blessed in that I could obviously build on the current PR plan and add, and I still clearly remember your masterclass, and I try to apply as much as possible, but there's obviously still room for improvement. The most important thing for me, having a PR plan, is it just gives structure and it helps you to strategize. It helps you to know which content is due when, on which platforms. What I have done in our club is I approached 2 members to serve as a PR subcommittee. We meet twice a month, a very short meeting. We go through previous posts. We decide what's the next post going to look like. And I get input on, maybe we had something planned, but something changed. And they also assist me in writing the newsletter. We rotated between the 3 of us. And this is also a great opportunity for one of them to maybe put up their hand and say, I'm ready. I want to take over the VPPR role. It wasn't without its challenges. When I accepted the role, I didn't know much about social media. And I still remember when I did my first Facebook post, I was very, very nervous and there wasn't a lot of engagement. And obviously I had a lot to learn, but I like to learn new things. And I quickly familiarized myself with what are the do's and don'ts for Facebook. And I quickly learned that there is something like content fatigue. You shouldn't post too often. Rather post when you really have content that's worth your while. Don't just do a post because you need to do a post. And then the second thing I learned is don't have too many words on your posts. Just have something that's interesting and that appeals to the follower or the member. When you have too many words or copy, people get bored and they don't want to read further. The media channels that we use at Honeydew Toastmasters Club is obviously social media channels and newsletter. And I definitely split my audience internal versus external. Internal is obviously exclusive to the members. And the way I talk to them and the topics that I talk to them about is slightly different than what I do to the external audience. For internal, for the members, I use WhatsApp and the newsletter. And this will be content like your membership renewal is due. Don't forget, this is the date. We'd love for you to stay with the club. Or it's about the COT training that's coming up. Or it could be about the speech contest. Please enter. How do you prepare for the speech contest? And the social media other platforms that I use for the external audience is also applicable to the members. But the main objective is to create awareness and get the information out there for potential Honeydew Toastmaster Club members or Toastmaster members. The platforms that we use is Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Meetup. The most successful platform so far was Facebook and Meetup. And I would say it's because we've had these platforms for quite a while. We only recently instituted LinkedIn and Instagram. And what I do, if somebody does RSVP for argument's sake on Meetup, I would say, hi, Netsai, I'm so happy to see that you RSVP'd. I really look forward to meeting you on Monday. And I'll keep in contact with that person. With the fact that today I have quite a lot of Meetup members, personal cell phone numbers, and I do keep in contact with them because I feel it is important. We had one member was on the verge of joining, but then she decided to move to Cape Town. So she might still join us from time to time on Zoom, but she's definitely going to join a club in Cape Town. So it's very important to have that personal interaction. With regards to LinkedIn and Instagram, it's kind of new platforms. And just to tell Mort and Zakia, with Instagram, we do use hashtags, but we ensure it's on brand and it's brand right. Because with Instagram, the image needs to be different. And the way you speak, because it's a little bit younger market, you don't use full sentences. We would use hashtag one step forward, or hashtag where leaders are made, or hashtag Toastmasters, because that appeals to that specific market. We do get engagements, but we haven't yet had anybody from LinkedIn or Instagram to attend as a guest. And that's the next step that we want to work on. What has also worked great is stories, when things are authentic. I have found that when we congratulate a member and we accompany it with a picture of the member and say, congratulations, Hannes, for achieving level 2 on your pathways, the engagement rate shoots through the roof because it's real, it's authentic. So in the new year, for my successor, or whatever happens with this role, I want there to be more of a focus on stories, maybe testimonials from current members. What has Toastmasters meant for them with the picture? Because we do get a high engagement rate with that. And new media channels that I feel is really, really relevant and should be added to the portfolio would be YouTube, a very user-friendly website where you can add these YouTube links and newsletters and blogs and testimonials, as well as focus more on radio and print as well. Netsai, thank you very much. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, indeed, it answered all of my questions. Thank you very much, Maralise. Such a detailed and comprehensive feedback of what was happening in their club. I liked a lot of things about what she said. I like the fact that she actually understands the different platforms and what they like. They like short sentences when it's Instagram. That's understanding the target market. I really like that. It means she took time to understand them, even though she hasn't found anyone joining from Instagram, but I'm sure she'll get there because she's trying to understand them, what they care about the most, what they like and all that. I like that part. And she also mentioned that she found a lot of response from Facebook. Maybe she also got a lot of members joining after seeing her posts from Facebook. So let's also focus and put more effort also on those platforms that are giving us value. I also like that. The fact that she knows what's giving her value is good. And I like the fact that she talked about don't just post when she's now advising the new person, don't just post for the sake of posting. People get content fatigue. They get tired of the same post over and over again. Every hour you're posting about the same thing. So yes, I like the fact that she knows the weak areas and the things that needs to be improved, that she would advise the successor. Well done. Good job, Maralise. And next, I'm going to ask Benjamin Devitt is a VPPR for Benoni Toastmasters, which is the club where I belong. Benjamin Devitt, again, kindly answer the questions that I was asking. Did you have a plan? What were the success stories? What were some of the challenges that you experienced? And what would you advise the next person that is taking over from you? I actually know that someone is taking over from you. So tell us. Over to you, Benjamin.
Good evening, fellow vice presidents of public relations, and good evening to you as well, Netsai. Yes, our club definitely did have a plan. I think as a result of first attending the club officer training, as well as the PR for Success masterclasses, I was exposed to the finer details of the VPPR role. I think this really triggered the creation of a PR plan, a PR calendar, and even a list of meeting themes, because I think that's also an important element on keeping the content fresh and relevant. So I found that particularly useful. I think we did implement the plan broadly. I think we were also flexible though, because being a relative newcomer to Toastmasters, I sort of relied on the executive committee to help me highlight some things along the way. I think, for example, something that wasn't in my plan initially, but the rest of our executive committee sort of alerted me to this, is a membership drive campaign, which we ran sort of between the middle of December and the end of January. And this particular campaign was very successful, and not having been a member for that long, I wasn't aware of how important this period was. I think how I managed to get the PR plan approved after being appointed as VPPR, I had a very good handover from the person who was taking care of this role before me. He was sort of filling the gap because unfortunately our previous VPPR wasn't part of the committee anymore, but he did the best he could. He was really well organized and had a very structured handover, which I think was really great. basically, I had prepared the plan and the PR calendar. I shared that with our executive committee a few days before the meeting, so they would have some time to actually go through that and read it and prepare some questions that they could then raise during the meeting. When I had when I attended the executive committee meeting, I discussed my plan with the rest of the committee, and they gave me some guidance to perhaps be a little bit more specific about certain aspects of the plan, who was going to do which aspect and by when. So I think that was certainly valuable. Your question as to whether it was successful or not, those aspects that went well. Look, I think it was successful. We were able to add 9 new members to our club during our term. Unfortunately, we also lost a few members during the same period, but we managed to add more members than we had lost. So net, the club did grow. So I think judging on that, I think we can certainly say that it was a success. I think the things that worked particularly well was that membership drive, which I mentioned earlier. Thinking of that period, let's say mid-December to the end of January, that is really a time when many people are reflecting on the year that's passed, looking at the year to come, really focusing on their personal development, and New Year's resolutions are certainly being thought about during that time. So I think Toastmasters being a great tool for self-improvement is definitely an important area, and gave us a great way to engage with our audience during that time. If I think about the media platforms that worked well for us, I basically used 3 main platforms. The first is press releases to our local newspaper, the Benoni City Times, which was very happy to have the content, particularly during the COVID period. It was really, the news in the newspaper was all COVID related, and it was great to have something a little bit different coming through. So I think they were really grateful to have some different content. We also used Facebook and marketing emailers. Just regarding Facebook, prior to becoming VPPR, I wasn't really that active on social media, and it was a little bit of a learning curve. But I think thanks to the club officer training and the PR for Success Masterclasses, I was able to create what I believe were brand right posts. I think without that guidance, they would have been all over the place. So I really appreciated that. And I would use our club's Facebook page to create events and regular posts. These posts I would then also share with the community Facebook pages, for example, the Benoni Community Network. So I think those certainly helped to increase my reach of the posts that I had created. I think lastly, in terms of tools, I made use of a free Mailchimp account to inform potential members about upcoming meetings, and particularly around that membership drive that I mentioned earlier. I think also having a good, strong VPPR plan, which is eventually implemented, also helped us to achieve our distinguished club points. So what I noticed is that the club really worked well in different areas to achieve our DCP points. In my role as the VPPR, my focus would naturally be on the membership goals. Obviously, we needed to make sure that we were attracting enough interest in our club so that people would want to attend as guests. And once they had attended, I could partner with the VPM to make sure that we engaged with these guests and eventually get them to join. I would agree with Annelies, particularly the acknowledgement of educational awards on social media is something that really encourages a lot of engagement, and it encourages existing members to to really be proud of what they've achieved, and naturally those are shared even wider, and I've really noticed a great deal of engagement happening on those posts. I think teamwork is definitely something that is important in executing the VPPR plan. I could see that our committee was working together to achieve our club success plan. Naturally, we all attended the required club officer training sessions. We managed to pay our subscriptions on time. We had some members of the club also recruiting some new members from her company. And of course, the other area particularly related to VPPR is making sure that the club was also engaging with our Facebook posts, because naturally through the Facebook algorithms, those posts which are being viewed, commented on, and were actually being shared by the members would naturally be shared through a wider audience. And one particular member, a lady by the name of Marika Grafia, who joined us in January, agreed to help us with a quick video. I'd like to share that with you, and this is probably our top performing post, Facebook post. I'm going to share that with you now.
Hey everybody, join us week Wednesday 7:30 for our Toastmasters. Here you're going to learn how to toast, some networking skills, and more about leadership. It's not only about talking, but so much more involved in joining the Toastmasters. Hope to see you all this Wednesday 7:30.
So as you can see, it was a very quick, short video, which really got a huge amount of engagement. So I think what's clear is that our audience really loves video. And as we are progressing through the rest of the year, she is doing some more for us. So I think that that's something that we can certainly look forward to. In terms of challenges, I think there was really two challenges. I think the first thing is to try and achieve even more engagement with our Facebook posts. Obviously now having seen what has happened with video, that's certainly something that we can leverage more, I believe. And the second aspect which I believe I could try and improve in future is the open and click rate on our emailers. Currently, the Mailchimp account gives you a very good statistics about the number of opens that you get, as well as the clicks to registration. And unfortunately, those are very low. So we have a nice database of people that we're contacting, but unfortunately, there's not too much activity from that point of view. So that's perhaps an area that I would be looking to improve. If I had any advice for my successor, I think it's definitely to have a VPPR or a PR plan. I think that makes things so much easier because you know what you need to do by when. We also know that our Toastmasters are super busy attending different meetings and different clubs and family commitments and work commitments. And I think the plan just puts everything into perspective. It also allows you to plan ahead, so you may have some time now, but not later. So really important to do that. And lastly, in closing, I'd like to say, I think that the masterclasses were really very valuable, and I'd like to thank the team for putting so much work and effort into that. Back to you, Netsai.
Wow, well done. Well done. Thank you so much, Ben. Wow, what a fantastic job you did there. And you really showed that having a plan really works. Congratulations for achieving the Distinguished President Award. And I also noticed that not only did you get 9 out of 9 points, you got like 10 out of 9 points. You got every box ticked, everything that is there on that DCP points, you got everything, meaning that you and your team put a lot of work into it, and you're not doing it alone, because you spoke about the teamwork that is in the club, and I am also witness to that. There's a lot of teamwork, and you also mentioned that members are highly motivated. It is so true that you are doing activities to retain those members. You are trying your best to make sure that their objectives and goals are met. That's why they are happy, and they are willing to go all out to get more members from their workplace. I know of a member who brought, I think, about 3 or 4 just because she's happy and she's satisfied, and she also wants others from her workplace to enjoy and benefit from the value that Toastmaster offers. That is a fantastic job. I also like the fact that the video that you showed there, that was beautiful. That was very creative of her and also of you, to find out from members who are creative. You saw the talent, you saw that she's very creative, and you took advantage of that. And voila, we got a lot of members, a lot of engagement from that cool video. Well done on that as well. And I really like the fact that you also mentioned that you got the plan approved by the committee. That is very important. It encourages ownership. It won't appear like this is just your thing, it's all in your head, and you are just doing what you are thinking without anyone's consent. The fact that you are encouraging that participatory approach where people are also giving their input, they were correcting you to say, why don't you also put timeframes? Why don't you put a responsible person and all that? It shows that teamwork and that you are together. You are all on the same page. I think that is very good. Well done on that. I think now, since Maud is also taking care of the rest of the stuff, I'm not sure whether she's now able to speak now or again later towards the end.
I am certainly ready to speak. Thank you to all our members for engaging with us via the chat box. There's so much that has come out of these last few minutes. Toastmasters, it's tedious to put together a plan. It takes a lot of time to put together that plan, but that PR plan is a game changer. It gives you structure, it helps you chart a way forward, and you're able to plan your life. Because remember, Toastmasters isn't the only thing that you're doing. You want to be able to do the other things in your life and still do Toastmasters and not be burnt out. And so that plan helps you to chart a way forward, because you're able to do posters or design posters in advance. If something changes, you're able to course correct it and you don't have any surprises along the way. So if you're one of those people that happen to not put together that PR plan, it's not a problem at all. Don't kick yourself about it, but do encourage your successor to put together that plan, because it's going to help them chart a way forward for themselves, and it's also going to help them to decide or to know what they're doing when, just like Benjamin said. And you don't have to do it alone. In Masterclass 2, Netsai spoke about keeping your leadership team accountable. It's important that they know about the plan, they know where they're involved in the plan, and every single week when you meet as an executive committee, you are telling them about the progress in the plan. So it's not a plan that's stuck on your wall somewhere in the house that you only know about. Your entire team knows about it. Your entire team is accountable for it, and your entire team is reporting on their areas as it relates to that PR plan. Netsai, I just want to take a little bit of a step back and remind Toastmasters, this was covered in Masterclass 2, and maybe perhaps if you missed it, it is on our YouTube channel, Toastmasters Southern Africa District 74. But it all starts, Toastmasters, with knowing and understanding your target market. If you speak to everyone, you're going to speak to no one. And so knowing who your target market is almost the foundation of your journey as a vice president of public relations, so that you know who you're speaking to, where they are, and how do they consume content in general. That will also help you chart a way forward and be able to be clear on which platforms do we go on as a club and which ones do we abandon. I've written here, you have to do your research. You have to explore the options, but you can't do your research. There's so many platforms out there. Which one do we go on? You need to have a focus. They say focus is follow one course until successful. There's so many platforms. You heard Tawanda in the beginning. They set up a page but didn't get to execute it. Follow one course until successful. Rather be on 1 or 2 platforms and do them really well than be on 4, 5, 6 platforms and not respond or not get any engagement at all. So something to think about and ponder on as you reflect on the year that was, and also help your successor with the transition. You know District 74, you know Southern Africa, Toastmasters. I love corporate clubs. I'm not from a corporate club, but we have many of our vice presidents of public relations who are from corporate clubs. And I want to always bring them in these masterclasses. With corporate clubs, we've said this before, your platforms tend to be a little bit more limited, depending on which corporate you're from. You have closed corporates, which are only employees from the company, and then you have open corporates, which allow people from outside. If you're from an open corporate, you can apply a lot of the stuff that we've learned here on PR for Success. If you're from a restricted corporate, please do find out from your employer what you're allowed to do and not do. We certainly do not want you to break any of the rules. But if you've got corporate affairs or internal comms at your company, that's a great place to start asking them if you can participate and get involved, getting the word out about Toastmasters to your colleagues. If they say no, look at WhatsApp. It's also an option. Word of mouth, never disregard it. In fact, I know of a few corporate clubs. There's two that come to mind. There's a club called Ernst & Young. It's based in Cape Town. They have a website. I've seen it. And there's also Nedbank Toastmasters. It's here in Johannesburg, South Africa. They go by a slightly different name because they're not allowed to use the word Nedbank in their branding as Toastmasters. So look them up. And maybe you can get inspiration if you're wanting to go the website route and you from a corporate club. University clubs, much the same as corporate clubs. If you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. So know and understand who you're speaking to, even in a university club, so that you're able to tailor your content accordingly. Netsai, I'm going to end and I'm going to speak about social media. As much or as similar to having a plan for PR, you also need to have what they call a social media plan. You need to know, this is my target market, what content do I want to consume, and then create the content for that audience. But you need to have a plan. How often are you going to post? What are you going to post? When are you going to post it? You need to have that social media plan. You saw with Benjamin, video, Toastmasters is powerful. People love to see themselves. People love to see other people. And so vary your content, or look at varying your content between posters, maybe written text and some video. Don't kill us with posters, because remember, we still have to pay for data, but try and vary it between the different ways of communicating with us. That way you're able to keep us interested and also surprised, because we don't know what we're going to expect from your social media page. Remember, Toastmasters, we covered this, I think, in the last masterclass of 2020. WhatsApp is also a social media platform. And so you also need to have a plan. Those groups that you have that are called friends of in your club, you need to keep those people engaged. Those are your potential members. Some of them have since left Toastmasters and you've put them in a group. Make sure that you're communicating with them. Don't only speak to them when it's 2 days before your club meeting. Make sure that you have a plan on how you're going to engage with them. I also want to share something. I shared this at the club officer training, and I'm not sure if I did here, but I'm going to say it, Netsai, just for the sake of this audience. What I've noticed in a lot of social media, and I'm on a lot of club groups, and I have my ear on the ground, a lot of us take pictures at our club meetings, or at the end of our club meetings. And then what do we do with them? We take them and we put them on WhatsApp. I want to encourage you, maybe from your next club meeting, and definitely tell your successor to stop doing that. Instead, take the creme de la creme, the best of those pictures, put them on your social media. So if your club is on Facebook, for example, put the best pictures on Facebook, create an album, put a little bit of a write-up about what this was about, the event was about, invite guests to your next meeting by telling them when it will be, give them a contact number or an email that they can reach out. And then on each post, there's those 3 buttons on the top right that say copy link. You click copy link and you send that link to your WhatsApp group. That way, members will have to click on the link, go to your social media, and be able to engage with your posts. That way, you're not only driving members to your social media, but you're creating content for your WhatsApp or for your social media. Someone said in the chat box, they're struggling to get engagement on their social media platforms. It's maybe because you don't have that plan. And so I hope I've ignited you just a little bit. If you have any other questions or comments relating to what we've just discussed, please do drop them in the chat box. We're going to try our best to address them as we continue with this masterclass. I've said a lot. I'm going to hand back to you, Netsai.
Thank you, Maud. Very enlightening indeed. I hope you were writing. You no need to write. We're going to send these notes to you, these slides to you. Wow, thank you so much, Maud. We're moving on now. I'm going to go back to my screen. We have finished reviewing the effectiveness and impact of our previous marketing plan and efforts, everything that we did last time. We now know where we are short and our weak areas and our strong areas and the things that we are likely to advise this new person. But now we want to look at this handover process. You know, every year, Toastmasters clubs changes their executive members, and managing that transition is very critical because you need to ensure that the club preserves its knowledge base. So we want to milk as much information as possible from the outgoing person and ensure that the new person has all the information that they need to go on for long-term success. So what is a handover? It is when one or more components of a project or role are transferred from one person to another for continuity purposes. So when this is done nicely, and when appropriate steps have been taken, this transition will be so seamless. It will be like as if nothing happened. You know, like the insurance, if you have a car accident, for example, they promise to make sure that they restore you to the original position that you were before the accident. This is how the handover works. It ensures that it restores the club to its original position before the change happened. All right, so it will be so seamless, it will be as if nothing happened. So the key is to maximize knowledge and skills transfer so that your club will still have the appropriate skills necessary to move on. And some of you may ask, why should we hand over? Obviously, we want the successor to be clear about the responsibilities and tasks ahead. We want them to prepare for the tasks ahead so that they are not shocked that there's this big thing outstanding. They are clear and they are prepared of the tasks ahead. And we want the VPPR to have a base to start from, a clean slate to start from. And this, like I said, it ensures a smooth transition. There will be no confusion. So by handing over properly, by taking the appropriate steps, it will be as if nothing happened. So all your year's hard work will also not go in vain. There will be someone to carry that over into the next year. So it still benefits you as well as an individual. And it will also ensure that important activities are not missed or skipped in error, because there will be a document that shows that this is supposed to be done and by when. And this also makes the successor feel supported. The new person, the new VPPR, will feel nothing beats the feeling that you know that there's a big brother behind you. If you are going to be in trouble, you know that the old person is going to come in and chip in and help you to succeed. So this is why we want to ensure that we all hand over successfully and smoothly. So I put together some of the steps that you can take to ensure a smooth transition. Step 1, tie up loose ends. Try to make sure that you go an extra mile to make sure that anything that is outstanding is cleared up. Do not leave like 200 activities to be done by this new person. And there's only 1 month, only June is available for them to work on those 200 items. It's not fair. So try and clear up all these outstanding activities, maybe 1 or 2 which are beyond your control. Maybe the activity was scheduled 25 June and you don't have any control about that. Maybe it's a newsletter that should come out in June, so you really don't have a control about it. But still, at the time, you still help the new person to achieve that. And why we insist that you try to clear up all outstanding issues is that in doing this, you also help ensure that you live on excellent terms and with a good reputation. There's nothing that beats the fact hearing your successor singing praises about you, to say, this man really helped me to get started. It makes one feel good, and it gives that sense of satisfaction that you have run your race and you've played your part. The next step, you now list the things that you need to hand over. What is it that you need to hand over? Write those down like a checklist. For example, the day-to-day activities that this person needs to know, and be clear of expectation that you are expected to do this on a day-to-day basis, or on a weekly basis, you should post. On a monthly basis, you should do this. Quarterly, you should do a newsletter. All that information, make sure they know what is expected of them. And then the list can include things like internal and external resources that you found most helpful. Also help them with the sites that you went to, the books that you read, the people that gave you information that helped you, so that she can also refer to those resources. And you can also do a list that you are going to do a briefing on ongoing and outstanding projects. And you can also list that you provide there with a calendar of forthcoming events, a list of essential files that she needs to have, and then any passwords, login information, all that information. And also you can write down to say you're going to help them navigate maybe the website. Maybe they don't know how to use it. You are the one who created it as a goal, so they don't know how to operate it. So take her through, and so that she's aware of what needs to be done. All right. So after you have listed the things that you need to hand over, the next thing that you now need to do is to now prepare a formal handover document, a written document. This is so that you avoid confusion. It helps you to organize your thoughts and put the pieces together. And when you write things down, you are less likely to forget. So write things down. Write down your handover document, divide it into 4 sections. You can have sections like, for example, one section which talks about activities and projects that have been achieved. That's one section, the things that were successful, that have been achieved and are complete. And then the second section can be about the status of ongoing projects and outstanding projects and activities. The other section can be about the deadlines for upcoming events, that calendar, which shows upcoming events, so that this person can also prepare for them on time. And then the last thing that you can put are the recommendations, so that they don't forget. If these things are written down, that advice that we were talking about, if you write it down as recommendations to say, I would recommend that you do this, I would recommend you go for training, I would recommend you attend this, you look at this, you speak to so and so, and all that, it will help you, this person, to have a clear picture of what is expected of her, and get that person to sign, to avoid confusion. We want to avoid a situation where you are saying, yes, I did, meaning I handed you, yes, I did, and this one say, no, you didn't, yes, I did, you know you did it. All that confusion is not necessary. We want to avoid that situation of, yes, I did, no, I didn't. But if they've signed, it's proof that they acknowledged that these are the things that are outstanding that need to be worked on. All right. And with regards to the outstanding issues, again, it's important to put them in a small action plan. On your handover report, you also copy paste your action plan, but this time it won't have the achieved projects. It's not necessary. You just focus on the outstanding, because that's what this person needs to work on. Maybe there are 2 outstanding issues. Have your columns again, like we discussed last time, which shows the project or activity that still needs to be done. For example, this club still needs to do the club social event. Normally, club social events happen towards the end of the year, so that people can celebrate and enjoy and celebrate the Toastmasters year. So this is unavoidable, because it was already planned for the 15th of June. If you can see here, it was planned for the 15th of June. So There's no way this was going to be completed. He has to wait until 15 June to complete this. So you write this as an outstanding issue and you tell us what stage it is. This one is 75% complete because most likely the VPPR has already done some work. And for example, under comments here, if you look, here, the venue has been booked. However, this new person may need to organize some logistics and catering because this club is going to have a braai. They are going to have a barbecue at the golf club, right? So as these activities are completed, you'll be ticking off every item of this action plan. So this will act as your checklist, and this will help you to tick off things that you have accomplished and completed. It makes life easier. So you will have your first page with your first part with your sections, and then you have the last part with the action points, the deliverables, the things that still need to be done. And then you get the person to sign. That will be a full handover document, all right? And the next thing that you now need to do, now that you have written down your handover document, you now need to hold a physical or virtual meeting with your successor. You can have a coffee session at some restaurant, just have coffee and go through the job description of this new person. I normally use the Toastmasters website. I go through the role from the Toastmasters website and tick and go through every item that is there so that you don't miss anything out of what she's expected to do. And then go through all the items on the handover report. You check for understanding if they understand everything in the expectations, and ask them to ask questions. Tell them to feel free to always ask questions even after. You now hand over any files and passwords that you may have, and you help them to navigate the system, like we said, if it's pathways or if it's how to write the PR document, you help them with tips of how to write the PR plan. All right. And then let the successor know that what the things that you found most valuable, most useful, and also let them know things that were challenging. Be honest. Don't try to paint a picture that everything was rosy, because when they then see that things are not as rosy as this guy was saying, it is very discouraging and demotivating, and they may give up the role of VPPR. So try to paint a clear picture of things to expect. All right. And then do not use this meeting as an opportunity to gossip about other leaders. Just be focused when you are doing this handover process. Don't shoot down other leaders or talk about them behind their back. Just focus on the job at hand, which is handing over. All right. Then the next step now is the mentoring now, because this handover process is not a 1 day or 1 week thing, or even a 1 month thing. It's not like that. It has no time limit. This transition process has no time limit. Therefore, you are continuously coaching this person. And when they need help, they can phone you and call you for help. So tell them upfront that feel free to call me, to WhatsApp me, to send an email, to have a Zoom call. You should show that you are there and you are easily available when they need help, because the mentoring and coaching process will have to continue for quite a while. And also allow them, like this period after they've been elected, most people are being elected first week of June, when they've taken over, allow them to perform activities whilst you watch, and also allow them to watch you do activities. They'll be it's like a shadowing process where they are watching you do things and they are learning from you how to do things. And then you also allow them to do certain tasks and you give them feedback, honest feedback, to equip them for the job ahead. Identify their training needs in the process and advise them maybe to attend certain training sessions, club officer training, PR for success, if it's still going to be ongoing, things like that. I'll advise them on what sort of training sessions that they can attend, and allow your successor to learn new skills from you. All right. And then make sure that it is clear that you are there to help them. Some people are shy. They'll not be forthcoming. They'll think they are burdening you. So just be clear and open that feel free, feel very free to ask questions. That way you'll be able to help them, all right? And also take responsibility for your actions. Don't try to blame others or to blame the environment, COVID-19 and all that. If you have made some mistakes, some errors, admit. We have had all the VPPRs that spoke here. They said they experienced some challenges, meaning that everything was not rosy. There were certain things that they would have wanted to do, but they couldn't do. So explain that to the new person to say, I would have wanted to do this. Don't paint a rosy picture, all right? And pass on that positivity forward, because when we are recognizing that incoming leaders inherit more than the team strategy, they also inherit the energy and the culture of your club. So you need to emphasize that your club is so enthusiastic, it's passionate, so they need to carry forward that positivity with them as they take over this job, all right? And also highlight any training needs. We have spoken about that. Try to encourage them to explore any training possibilities at the club level, division level, and district level. Any club officer training they should attend and equip themselves with the skills that they need for this job. Encourage them also to, no, this is the last part. Now you've finished handing over everything, you've written down your document, everything is there, your action plan, and you are now continuously coaching them and guiding them. I've put together some of the things that you can tell them. Some of the things have also come out during the discussions. What advice would you give your successor? Find out the reasons why current members joined Toastmasters for member retention. You need to, like we said earlier, you need to have activities that are aimed at retaining new members, because there's no point gaining 6 members and losing 8. There's no gain there. So try to find out if the members are happy, because when members are satisfied, they'll never leave your club. It's like when a boyfriend is doing all the right things, saying all the right things, doing the right things, buying the right gifts, why would you leave them? But maybe that guy doesn't exist anyway. But still, if you're ticking all the right boxes, members will not leave the club, all right? So meet regularly. I would also advise that meet regularly with your PR committee. In fact, I would advise form a committee to help you to do certain things, press releases, posting, or doing all sorts of things, so that it's not too much and it's not overwhelming. So, and then I would then advise meet regularly with your team and review progress and ongoing and future events. I would also advise that track progress of the plan during the club executive meetings. In our case, we meet every month. The executive meets every month without fail. So try and do that. Some people even meet twice. We only meet twice if there are urgent things coming up, but without fail, we meet at least once every month. So that's the opportunity to present your plan, any outstanding issues, and any help that you need, so that you work as a team. All right. And I would also advise to hold regular meetings online. Have coffee sessions with senior members of the club. Those people are so full of knowledge, those experienced members, the older experienced members of the club. They tap into their knowledge base. You will be surprised with what comes out and the direction that they will give you. I do that a lot. I gather all those mentors and all those senior members who've been there maybe 8 years, 10 years, some 30 years. I tap into their knowledge, and then I sit with them and find out which areas should I improve, what is working well, what is not working well. And then they give you advice to say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you implement that? You'll be surprised. These people have traveled this road before you. They know all the twists, the turns, the corners, and the challenges that you are likely to face. Make use of them and take advantage of their wisdom. I would also advise review the impact of your media platforms, put more effort on what's giving you the most value. All right. I can also advise, chunk it down, break complex goals into smaller goals, smaller manageable tasks, and get started, because people get scared when the task looks big. So chunk it down, break it down into smaller tasks. All right. All right. And now, in conclusion, start the handover soon after the elections. That day, soon after, maybe a day after or 2 days after, once it's fresh, once the person is still energized and ready to go, that's the time to do the handover. So plan it as soon as possible, soon after the elections, and focus on encouraging the new VPPR to tell them words like, you can do this, you've got this, you can do this. Just try to encourage them that they've got this, you are confident that they can do this job, even if you are not confident, but just tell them that you are confident they can do it. Offer to help and be there for the long haul. Like I said, be ready to answer calls, be ready to assist if they need help. And if they send you a WhatsApp message, please don't ignore. There's nothing as bad as sending someone a WhatsApp message asking to say, where do I find this? How do I navigate this? And then you see that they've blue ticked you and they're ignoring. And then even after 5 days, they still don't respond. That's poor social etiquette. It's not right. The fact that they've asked you for that thing, it means it's so important to them. What if someone else does the same thing to you? It's not fair. Do unto others what you want them to do unto you. All right. So be helpful and be responsive, even on WhatsApp. All right. If you are busy, tell them in a meeting, we'll get back to you. Something like that. At least they know that you have read the message. All right. Continuous mentoring and coaching, and also encourage the successor to attend lots and lots of training sessions. I always attend those club officer training sessions, PR for Success. I repeat. It's okay to repeat because you always learn something new, because the presenters are different. This one will touch on something that was not touched by the previous presenter, right? So encourage them to attend as many training sessions as possible. All right. So Maud, that concludes my assignment for today, and now I hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Netsai. You shared so much. And what I love about what you shared is that it's not only relevant to us as Vice President of Public Relations, but the handover process is almost identical no matter which club or district role you take. If you're an area director, a division director, as public relations manager, I have already started the handover process to my successor. That handover process is gold, Toastmasters, and your successor deserves it. They're looking forward to it. So I ask once again that you please deconstruct everything that you've learned in this particular masterclass and help your successor, set them up for success. Tell them about the challenges that you encountered, how you overcame them, what were some of the lessons you learned, but also tell them about your successes so that they can continue doing those and take those to the next level and try to overcome a lot of the challenges that you went through. Because ultimately they do say that success is in the succession. You are not successful as a leader until the one who comes after you is. So please, Toastmasters, do set your successor up for success. Netsai spoke a lot about training sessions. I hope that you found these sessions to be useful over the past few months. Please do tell your successor about these masterclasses. They are on our YouTube channel. In fact, I've dropped a link to our YouTube channel. The YouTube is called Toastmasters Southern Africa District 74. If you're not a member or if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to it. Encourage your successor to do the same. These masterclasses are on our channel so they can view it at any time. This could be a resource, or I'm encouraging you to add PR for Success as a resource that your successor can use as they navigate their journey, especially in the first few months of the Toastmasters year. I love what Netsai spoke about a subcommittee, and I think I think it was Marlies that spoke about having a subcommittee. I would recommend that in the start of the Toastmasters year, just scout around the club and see who has a passion for what. As PR people, we have our ear on the ground. I hope that you have too. And you can just find out from your members, what is it that they do in their 9 to 5? What are they passionate about? You may find that you may have 1 or 2 people who could help or serve on your subcommittee that you didn't think would. All you have to do is ask. They say no ask, no get. So I want to encourage you to perhaps scout around, find out what your members do. Who knows, you may have a mod in your club who's as passionate about PR and could assist you in 1 or 2 of the tasks as you help execute your role. And in the process, you could be helping finding your successor. So give it some thought, no pressure, of course. Zakia, I'm going to hand over to you and maybe we can do the session together. There were lots of elements on PR for Success that we would have loved to have covered, but we didn't have time. In fact, we wanted to tailor-make this program to suit more or the majority of the challenges that our members were facing at that particular time and the environment we found ourselves in. And so there are a few things that I've mentioned here that could also form part of the handover, but are also topics that we didn't get to discuss in detail. If you're needing or if you're wanting more information, please do reach out to us in the chat box. We'll put it together as part of our handover that we will give to you at the end of this program so that you're able to use it in your personal and professional life, and most importantly, use that information to set your successor up for success. I've spoken here about the club, or I've written here about the club website. Not all clubs have a website. I don't know if you're aware that as Toastmasters, we each have a segment or portion on the Toastmasters website. So when you click www.toastmasters.org and you say find a club and you type wherever your area is that you live and the name of your club comes and the guest or the prospective member clicks on your club, there's all that information that comes about your club. Your club has the back end to update that information. And so it would be lovely as part of your handing over that you make sure that the information that's on there is the most updated. You may need to change the details of your vice president of membership and possibly your president, or 1 or 2 things to make it current. So please make sure that you go on toastmasters.org, find a club, look for your club, check and make sure that the information is correct. And if the leadership is changing, make sure that the correct numbers are there so that when a prospective member reaches out, they're reaching out to a current leadership team. Zakia, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add with regards to website. Over to you.
Thank you, Maud. No, I don't. But before you go, can you please answer Monifa's question from Antigua as what your thoughts are, especially since you are the district PR manager, and how you would advise them in their region whether on collaboration with regard to the PR plan. So her question is, I'm from a small island and we have several clubs in the country and a few dual or even triple membership, some within the executive. Do you think we should collaborate as small clubs to formulate a general PR plan as well? So I know Susan discussed having an area media pack, an area-wide media pack as a collaborative thing. So given their situation, what are your thoughts on a collaborated PR plan?
Thank you so much, Zakia, for bringing that through the chat box. I definitely think it's an idea that the clubs could explore, but then again, it comes back to a point I mentioned earlier. Is the target market of all these clubs on the island the same? Mm-hmm. Are there corporate clubs and community clubs? Because these clubs, they are corporate clubs, they are community clubs, and sometimes they are university clubs, much like here in District 74. And you may find that the target market is not the same. And so having one plan becomes a bit challenging when you're dealing with, say, for example, a closed corporate, an open corporate, a club, a few community clubs with young people, a few with maybe they meet in the morning or they have different demographics. It becomes difficult to navigate it. So what I could possibly recommend is that each club has its own plan based on its target market, of course. And then the clubs could come together. I'm not sure if all of these clubs are in one area or if there are two. Toastmaster, if you could perhaps confirm for us in the chat box, are they one area or two? They're very likely two areas. If there are one area, they could look at having an area plan, which each club would feed into, or they could have individual plans. I'm tending to lean to, there are 3 to 4 community clubs. Okay, I'm leaning a bit more to each club having its own plan, because each club is different in its nature and was started for a different reason. And then the clubs could collaborate and have an area plan where they all give input. But ultimately, each of them has an own plan, or almost like their own operating procedures on how they want to do things based on their target market. I hope I've answered your question, Toastmaster Monifa. If I haven't, please do drop it in the chat box and I'll try to provide a little bit of clarity as we go along the evening. Back to you, Zakia.
Thank you. So you asked me if I wanted to add anything with regard to websites. I not just specifically to websites, but what I wanted to expand on is that you mentioned that we need to keep the information on Toastmasters International website updated and current. I think as outgoing VPPRs, we need to do that everywhere. On our Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, TikTok accounts, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere else as well. And I think really, really important is to ensure that that email address where queries get forwarded to, or that email address that is shared, that username and password must please go on to the incoming executive committee so that there is no break in communication from that email address. So everything with regard to websites applies directly to everything else, all your other public spaces as well. And I just think that should go into your handover process urgently as well. The other thing I wanted to ask, I did ask in the chat box about best practices in terms of a team. And I was wondering, Maud, because this is something you and I have discussed and also had to deal with, is having multiple people having access to the Facebook accounts, the Instagram accounts, so that there's no break in communication. Now, some clubs don't do that because they consider that bad security and a veering off the potential PR plan, and others feel that that's how you ensure continuity all the time, especially if somebody gets ill, takes off some time, or just can't at that point. So perhaps if you would like to share what your thoughts are on that process, Maud.
Thank you so much, Zakia. In fact, I have written it down here. Thank you, but thank you very much for bringing it up. I've got 2 suggestions and they're quite linked, and I will weave in your question once I've mentioned what I want to say. Is I want to encourage you, brand ambassadors, as you prepare to hand over, is look at creating a club email address. And let me start with that first. Look at creating a club email address. So what sometimes happens, and I know it happens with us as district leaders, is that when you take on the role, you get an email address. So I have pr@toastmasters74.org, and it's linked to my personal email address. Now, the challenge with that is that should something happen to me, no one has a legacy of all the emails that were sent to me. At club level, I'm recommending that your club starts an email address and use that as your central point of communication. So that should there be a break, should someone fall off or get ill or need to take a break, the continuity is still there, and we're not left asking, I sent an email to Maud, oh, but Maud's no more in the committee, and now we don't have that information. So look at setting it up. A platform like Google has Gmail, which works really well. At my home club, we have an email address, and it helps because that's the email address that we put on all the platforms. A lot of us are quite private and don't necessarily want to have our details out there. And if that's you, rather look at having a club email address. In fact, I'd like to encourage all the clubs to have a club email address and use that as your way of operating as a club, so that you ensure continuity. And then once you've set up that account, you share the username or the login, the email address and the password with your team. Usually for security measures, they have a cell phone that's linked to it. That is not a problem at all. As long as you've asked your leadership team, at least 2 or 3 of them, ideally yourself, the president, the vice president of membership, the treasurer, all the people that are client facing, that deal with guests or that deal with members, to log onto that account on their device so that you're able to give them the code that, for example, Gmail will ask you for. And then every time you log in, you won't need that code, except when perhaps you log onto a different device. Again, that helps with continuity, so that if Maud is ill, we don't come to a standstill. There's all these other people who have access to everything that was said in the account. I use that quite well at district level. We started a team account. In fact, PR for Success has its own team account. And so when you email, I receive the email, Zakia receives the email, as well as Mercy. That is ideally recommended at club level, just so that we ensure that continuity. And then when your term is over, like it is now, you merely change that number that the code was going to, and you make sure the new leaders log onto that email address. And then you release that number to someone else on the team, and that way you ensure the continuity. That email address now comes in handy on some of these platforms that require you to log on with an email address. Now, this is your question, Zakia. I'd love to recommend that clubs have more than one admin. I've seen this before. You start this beautiful page, it has 1,000+ followers, and then for some reason, Maud falls off. And now we can't find her, we don't have access to it. And now we have to start a new page. We've lost all those people that we no longer have access to. We have to start a new page, and we can't use the original name because it's already taken. I've seen it many times, Toastmasters. Please don't let that be you, or don't let that be your successor. So encourage them to have more than one admin on all the social media platforms that your club is using, just so that there is that continuity should something happen or someone fall off, that we're still able to access those accounts. And then share the handles, share the passwords with the team. In fact, send an email to the club email, just in case someone loses their phone and doesn't have the details. At least it's at your shared point of contact, which is the club email address that you will form. I don't know if you've got any other questions with regards to that, Zakia, before we talk about newsletters.
I just want to mention that Benjamin has suggested that there is a free Toastmaster host that has free email addresses for Toastmaster clubs, and that's at toastmastersclubs.org. So Benjamin, I'm assuming we would just go to that website and create an email address for our clubs then. Thank you for sharing that. We can go on to newsletters now, Maud.
Thank you so much, Zakia. I do want to say that whilst there is that email address, I stand corrected, but that email address redirects to someone's personal email. I stand corrected. That was my case when I was the president. So please do make sure, use the resource that's in the chat box, try it out, in fact, and see how you're able to go. But I personally will recommend a club email address, even for the sending out of invoices, any information, any client-facing information, have it in one central place, Toastmasters, so that all the leaders can access it, and also for your successor, so that the club email address never changes, even though the leaders do. During the course of the week, one of our Toastmasters asked a question with regards to newsletters. I've seen, or I've scouted around District 74, and I've noticed that not a lot of clubs are using it. News travels faster these days, Toastmasters, especially in the times we find ourselves in. In fact, news breaks faster on social media than it does in traditional media. I don't know if that's the reason why our clubs are not using newsletters, but I have observed across Southern Africa that very few clubs are making use of newsletters. But if you decide that you would like to venture down that path, please do. Remember your target markets. You need to understand how do they consume media. And if you believe that they can benefit from a newsletter, then go ahead and do it. Always though, make sure that your newsletter is also brand right. Some of the things you need to consider when you're putting that newsletter together is how long will it take you to compile it? If it's going to take you 2 or 3 weeks to put a quarterly newsletter, is that the best use of your time? Something to consider. What content will you include on there? Will you get content from the members, or will you be creating content? Are you going to be stuck a month or 2 down the line where members decide not to give you content? Do you have to chase them? Some of the things to consider. What will your frequency be? Will you come out every week, every second week, once a month, every second month, once a quarter, once in 6 months, once a year? Again, something for you to consider. So if you do decide to do newsletters, please do take into consideration your target market so that you're able to use your time wisely. Remember, I said follow one course until successful. Have a focus in line with your target market so that you're able to give them content that speaks best to them. Zakia, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add, or if there are any questions, or if I've answered the question from the Toastmaster who did request or ask that during the course of the week. Back to you, Zakia.
Thank you, Maud. Yes, and I wanted to say with regard to newsletters is there are clubs that have been doing it and they have a long tradition. And so it's waited for, it's expected, there's a familiarity with it, and it brings success. Whereas new clubs might or might not have the same experience because they don't have that long tradition of having a newsletter. So it's always really important to identify who your target market is and where they hang around. And you want to hang around in those same spaces as them. And newsletters might or might not be the space for that. I do know, I think Ben mentioned that he struggles with getting clicks on his Mailchimp newsletters or emails. I think that is generally a problem for most people who have email databases right now, because email is now competing with so much else. Before, email was the standard of communication, but now too much gets sent over to the promotions folders. It gets missed. It goes into spam. And it's just overkill in terms of email. So people stick to WhatsApp, and that's even getting difficult now. They stick to YouTube, they stick to TikTok, or they're comfortable in other spaces. So again, it's really important to look at where your audience hangs out, and you want to hang out with them wherever they are. That's it from me with regard to newsletters. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Maud?
Zakia, maybe as I prepare to wrap up, you can just have a look at the chat box one more time, and if there's maybe 1 or 2 questions that we could answer before we take a group picture. But I want to say something, and I saw this in the chat box earlier this evening, is a lot of times we struggle to get our members to engage with our content. And I want to encourage you, brand ambassadors, not to give up. Public relations is one of the most exciting roles. In fact, I believe you're the most exciting club officer there is, but don't tell the others I said so. It's so exciting. There's so much to learn, so much to do. And in fact, if you've been diligent in the role, you'll find that you're able to take a lot of the skills that you learn as a VPPR and apply them in your personal and professional life. So don't give up. Be consistent, be persistent, but most importantly, be patient. It takes one member at a time to change the game for you. And so if you're struggling to get your members to engage with your content, try with one member, and then another, and then another. And before you know it, you've influenced a group of people, and that could create that snowball effect that could turn out into something big. So please don't give up, be persistent, be patient, but also be consistent. Are there any questions in the chat box, Zakia? I know you want us to take the customer picture that as we do at PR for Success. Should we maybe do that, and then I will wrap up?
I think there's just one question, and I think we can redirect Annalise to one of our previous masterclasses, but she finally got response from a local radio station just this week. And so she now needs some help with what information she can share on air relating to the Toastmasters. And so I think that's great, Annalise, that you managed to finally get, and then maybe that's an example of where being persistent really pays off when it comes to things like radio. What do you share? I think maybe Maud, you can summarize, but I would highly recommend that you look at effective messaging 1 and 2, because there was a lot shared in that. And then the session on talking to the media that Susan and Dawn hosted. I can't remember which masterclass that was, but that one there, those are three masterclasses that would give you ample information on what you can share on radio, and then you need to summarize it based on your target market, who you're speaking to, who that radio station's listeners are, and what you have to offer those listeners to come to your club. So I suppose Andrew and Yonela, the last session, what they shared as well would be relevant, but I think effective messaging 1 and 2 and the speaking to the media are the 3 key ones.
And yes, you are correct. And the one about getting the word out, it was Masterclass 4. We hosted it in October. Toastmasters, I've dropped a link to our YouTube channel. If you're a member of the dedicated WhatsApp group, I've also dropped the link there if you're not. In the description of that WhatsApp group, we have the playlist to all the masterclasses. Please go back and have a look at it. We describe in detail what you could do to speak to the media. But one of the important things, just like knowing your target market, you need to know the target market of the radio station. What kind of content do they usually put out there? And then tailor your Toastmasters content in line with them. Remember, it's about them. It's not about your content. And they probably reach out to you because there's something that intrigued them about your content. And so you need to do a little bit of research, explore, find out what do their listeners love to hear, and tailor your content around that. But you'll definitely find some useful nuggets from Masterclass 4. It was called Getting the Word Out, How to Create Awareness About Your Club in Your Community. Zakia, I know we're out of time, so maybe we can take that picture and then I will wrap up as I usually do. Over to you.
Thank you. Please, thank you, Maud. I wanted to say I wish we had another hour because I think we could speak endlessly. But since we don't, if we can all turn on our videos, and so our Zoom master of Hani, who has remembered to switch on his video this time, is ready to take pictures.
Just waiting for everybody else to give me a warm Toastmaster smile. Come on, Mark. Come on, Michael. Come on, Tosh.
Sharon's not joining us today.
Sharon is not joining us.
Yes.
Maybe next time. Oopsie. And big smiles. Dennis Miles, Michael Shackleton, Dosh, Paula. Yeah. All right. Well, the others will miss out on having their beautiful faces plastered on our Facebook page. Thank you very much, Zakia. Thank you very much, Maud.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, everybody else.
Maud, do you want me to do my thanks first or after you've spoken?
Perhaps you can do the thanks and then I'll wrap up this time.
Okay. I want to tonight have a long thank you list. So thank you as always to our Zoom master of Hani and to Maud. Netsai, thank you. That was really brilliant. I also want to thank Sharon, Dewanda, Ben, Maralise, Monifa, Denise, and Annaliswa for sharing, for your questions, and for your participation. Everything that you all participated in was extremely useful. And of course, thank you to everybody that was here this evening. I know it's a difficult time in District 74. We really appreciate your presence and all the comments in the chat box. With that, Maud, I'm going to say good night and hand back over to Maud.
They say that success is in the succession. Tonight we were talking all about how to plan for success, but most importantly, how to set your successor up for success. We're all planning to wrap up the Toastmasters year strong. And as we do so and hand over to our successor, I hope that you found this masterclass useful. As always, Toastmasters, I say that ideation without execution is mere delusion. All these ideas will mean nothing if you do not bring them to life. And so I ask that you please go back, view the recording, deconstruct this with your teams, take out what will work and what will not, draft that succession plan, and most importantly, execute. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And we do not want to see you fail, certainly not in the upcoming Toastmasters year. We've had a lot of fun tonight, so thank you so much for spending your evening with us today. This has also been our penultimate masterclass. On the 19th of June will be our ultimate masterclass in this PR for Success program in this Toastmasters year. We plan to end it off with a bang. It's going to be a celebration. In fact, we're also going to include a certification ceremony. We're going to bring back all our facilitators, or as many of those that we're able to get, and we're going to celebrate what has been an amazing Toastmasters year. So please pencil book it. The invitation will follow in coming days. 19th of June, which is the third Saturday in June, we look forward to hosting you. A reminder, Toastmasters, I have included in the chat box a link to our dedicated PR for Success WhatsApp group. It's a very useful resource to have because we include all the presentations. Our facilitators are also in that group, so you can ask them follow-up questions about our masterclasses. And most importantly, you can get to engage with fellow delegates and fellow Toastmasters from across Southern Africa. A reminder too, to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Toastmasters Southern Africa District 74. We look forward to engaging with you on that platform too. We've had a lot of fun tonight. Thank you so much for making it such a success. Thank you for sharing your Saturday with us. And thank you for being part and making this PR for success. Until we meet again on the 19th of June, please take care, be safe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Public relations, a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between clubs, their members, and the public. The PR for Success is designed to help you do that with impact and towards excellence. One masterclass a month, each focused on a different aspect of public relations and geared towards immediate implementation of skills, with a WhatsApp group that provides a supportive space. Some of the things that you will learn are the power of the Toastmasters brand and effective use of the PR toolkit. What about designing ads that wow, and creating and implementing a social media plan with effective use of the media? The PR for Success program, designed for VPPRs but open to all members and designed to help you take your PR skills to the next level. Are you ready?